I'm not crazy! Hey, get me down here, my children!
Her children had her committed as insane to steal her fortune, but the burned diary changed everything. The awakening came like an endless nightmare. Helena opened her eyes slowly, vision blurry, mouth dry as sand. She tried to move her arms, but felt the cold resistance of leather straps against her wrists. Panic exploded in her chest. Where was she? What had happened? The white ceiling spun above her. Fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing like trapped insects. She tried to scream, but her voice came out as a muffled moan, tongue heavy, lips numb. Drugged. She was drugged. From the hallway came familiar voices. Her heart froze. How long will she stay here? Marcella's voice, her daughter. As long as it takes. Until we forget she ever had a voice. Rodrigo, her son, laughing softly. Helena felt tears burn her eyes. Her own children, the ones she had carried, nursed, raised. And there they were on the other side of the door, deciding her fate as if they were getting rid of old furniture. She turned her face toward the window and saw, through the bars, a scene that ripped her soul apart. In the courtyard outside, Marcella held something in her hands. A notebook, her diary, the only proof of everything they had done. The match struck. The flame danced. The pages began to burn. Helena watched, powerless, as her words turned to ash. Every line she had written in secret, every name, every date, every betrayal documented, all of it consumed by fire. Her daughter smiled, watching the flames with eyes gleaming in satisfaction. Then a gust of wind tore a single page from the fire. It floated through the air for one eternal instant, landing far away at the edge of the courtyard, where no one seemed to notice. Helena closed her eyes. Maybe that page was just an illusion. Maybe everything was. Maybe she really had gone insane. But something inside her, a voice that refused to die and whispered, "It's not over yet." That night the fire took what was left of her voice, but it also ignited the beginning of her vengeance. 6 months earlier, Helena Valente was everything anyone would want to be at 63. Clear-headed, elegant, prosperous. Owner of a chain of jewelry stores she'd inherited from her late husband and expanded with her own business vision, she was respected in corporate circles and admired for her steady demeanor and strong sense of justice. A widow for 15 years, she'd devoted her life to 2 pillars, her commercial empire and her 2 children. Marcella, the older daughter, held a business degree but had no real vocation for work. Rodrigo, the younger son, was charming and empty, living on appearances and easy money. Helena loved them. Of course she did. But deep down she knew their love for her had always been conditional. The mansion they lived in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, was a museum of memories and achievements, paintings on the walls, crystal chandeliers, rosewood furniture. Everything paid for with sweat, strategy, and sacrifice. She had never remarried, not for lack of opportunity, but because she knew no man would tolerate a woman with more power than he had. Her children lived with her. For convenience, they said. The truth was they'd never been able to support themselves. Marcella had tried to open a clothing store that went bankrupt in 8 months. Rodrigo invested in a bar that became a center of debts and trouble, and Helena, as always, paid the bills. But lately something had changed. The looks between the siblings, conversations that stopped when she entered the room, questions about bank passwords, about the will, about plans for the future. She wasn't foolish. She felt the shift in the air the way you feel a storm before the first drop. What Helena didn't know was that the storm had already begun, and she was in the eye of the hurricane. It started with small things. So small, Helena thought she must be imagining them. One afternoon she couldn't find her reading glasses. She always left them on the little table beside her armchair. They weren't there. She turned the living room and bedroom upside down, and eventually found them in the refrigerator. "Mom, are you all right?" Marcella asked with fake concern, her eyes shining with something Helena couldn't name. I must have put them there without noticing," she answered, confused. Rodrigo came into the kitchen, arms crossed, a thin smile on his face. "You've been very forgetful, Mom. Are you sure you're sleeping well?" A chill ran down Helena's spine. No. She was certain she hadn't put her glasses in the fridge. Days later, it was her wallet. It vanished from her bag and turned up inside the oven. "How strange, Mom. You must be exhausted. You work too hard at your age," Marcella said again. That sweet, poisonous voice, the car keys, the phone, her blood pressure medicine. Everything began to disappear and reappear in absurd places, And always, one of the two was nearby to witness her confusion. Helena began to doubt herself. Could her memory be failing? Was age finally catching up? But suspicion grew alongside those doubts. One night she noticed Rodrigo entering her office when he thought she was asleep. She peeked through the door crack and saw him photographing documents with his phone, bank papers, deeds. Her heart ran. She wanted to confront him, but something stopped her. An instinct. The feeling that if she exposed what she knew, she would lose whatever advantage she still had. So she began to watch. What she saw chilled her to the core. Marcella was emptying her blood pressure pills and refilling the capsules with flour. Helena saw it with her own eyes. Rodrigo tampered with dates in her planner so she'd miss important appointments. The two of them rehearsed stories, creating a narrative. Mom is forgetting things. She's confused about the days. We need to take care of her. In front of friends and acquaintances, they played devoted children. At home, they plotted her destruction. The breaking point came at a meeting with the family lawyer. Helena had scheduled it to review her will, but when she arrived, the lawyer looked at her oddly. "Mrs. Helena, you were here last week, don't you remember?" She froze. "No, I didn't come. But you signed some papers. Your children were present, worried about you." The floor dropped away beneath her feet. She returned home in silence, locked herself in her room, and for the first time in her life, cried out of fear. They weren't just stealing her fortune, they were stealing her sanity, her credibility, her identity. She needed proof, before it was too late. That night, Helena decided to start writing. Every detail, every betrayal, everything in a diary hidden away. What she didn't know was that her children had already taken the next step, and there would be no time to gather all the evidence. The deadline was closing in. The conversation took place in the dining room late at night when they thought Helena was asleep. But she was awake, standing at the top of the stairs, invisible in the dimness, listening to every word. "We can't wait any longer, Rodrigo. She's starting to get suspicious," Marcella said softly, urgency in her voice. "I know, but if we move too fast, they'll suspect us. And if we wait too long, she'll find out everything. That lawyer nearly blew our cover today." Helena held her breath. "We have to commit her," Marcella said firmly. "It's the only way. If she's in a psychiatric clinic, we get full power of attorney. We control everything." Rodrigo hesitated. "What if she resists?" "She will resist, but it doesn't matter. I already talked to Dr. Mendes. He'll sign the report. Says she shows signs of senile dementia, erratic behavior, danger to herself. But she doesn't have any of that. That's irrelevant. What matters is what's on paper." Bile rose in Helena's throat. Dr. Mendes, the family doctor, the man who dined at her table, was bought too. "How much will it cost?" Rodrigo asked. 50,000. But worth it. Once she's committed, we liquidate the jewelry stores, transfer the properties, drain the accounts. In 6 months, nothing will be in her name. Everything becomes ours. And after, Marcella gave a cold, short laugh. "After? We let her rot there. Who's going to believe a mad woman?" Helena covered her mouth to stifle a sob. She crept downstairs, locked the door to her bedroom, and sat on the bed, trembling. Her own children, her flesh and blood, planning her destruction like it was a vacation. She needed to run. But where to? Who would believe her? They'd already planted doubt in everyone around her. She grabbed the diary hidden under the mattress and began feverishly writing names, dates, the conversation she'd just overheard. The next morning she woke with a strange heaviness. Her head felt thick, her limbs felt leaden, her mouth tasted bitter. She staggered to the kitchen. Marcella was there, smiling as she made coffee. "Good morning, Mom. Slept well?" Helena looked at the cup Marcella handed her and understood. "I don't want coffee." "Oh, Mom, don't be silly. I made it especially for you." Marcella's eyes glinted with cruelty Helena had never seen before, or perhaps it had always been there, and Helena had refused to look. "I said I don't want it." Rodrigo entered the kitchen. "Mom, you need to eat. You're so weak. You've been so confused lately." They moved in. Helena tried to pull back. "Don't touch me. We just want to take care of you." Marcella soothed, syrupy voice, hard eyes. She tried to run, but her legs failed. Rodrigo grabbed her arms. "Calm down, Mom. It'll be okay. We called a doctor. He'll help." "Let go of me." Marcella gripped her face hard. "Drink. Now." The cup was forced to her lips. Helena spat, but some of the liquid slid down her throat. Bitter, chemical. The world tilted. "That's it, Mom. Relax." She tried to scream, but nothing came out. Her body went limp. Her knees buckled. Rodrigo carried her like a sack of potatoes. The last thing she saw before blacking out was Marcella smiling. She knew then it was already too late. When she came to, she was in a place she didn't recognize, a white room with barred windows and the smell of harsh disinfectant. Through the glass door, her children were signing papers with a man in a white coat. Helena screamed, but nobody turned. She had been erased. Time didn't exist there. No clocks on the walls. The windows showed only sky, with no streets or landmarks to orient her. Helena didn't know if it was morning or afternoon, if hours or days had passed since she woke up in that place. The sign read, Clinica Santa Beatriz, a gentle name for a white hell. The corridors were endless, lit by buzzing fluorescent lights. The linoleum floor was always cold under bare feet. The walls, too white, reflected light in a way that hurt the eyes, and the silence. Heavy silence broken only by muffled moans, hurried nurse footsteps, the clink of metal trays. Helena was placed in an individual room. 6 square meters, a bed with coarse sheets, a tiny bathroom with no door, a plastic chair, nothing else. She tried to talk to the nurses. There's been a mistake. I shouldn't be here. My children lied. Please listen to me. But they passed her by as if she were invisible, or worse, as if she were just another mad woman screaming nonsense. A large-shouldered nurse with an empty look grabbed her by the shoulders when she tried to leave the room. You need to calm down. This is for your own good. For my good, you're locking me up. You're confused. It's normal. Treatment will help. The word treatment froze her. Twice a day they brought a tray of pills, white, blue, yellow. Helena refused. 2 nurses held her while a third forced her mouth open and shoved the pills down her throat. She spat. They made her swallow, even pinching her nose. The meds left her floating, her mind dulled, emotions blunted. She spent hours staring at the wall, unable to think straight. But in the brief, lucid gaps between doses, Helena watched, and what she saw was terrifying. Patients drifted through the halls like ghosts. Women with vacant stares, men mumbling to themselves, some strapped to wheelchairs, drooling, forgotten. A nurse commented within hearing, "Most people here are committed by family. Inheritance, houses, money fights, always the same story." A knot formed in Helena's throat. She wasn't alone. This place was a dumping ground for inconveniences, people someone wanted silenced, erased, forgotten. Then the first visit came. Marcella and Rodrigo arrived with Dr. Mendez. They smiled, but their eyes were cold. "How are you feeling, Mum?" Marcella said, sitting like someone visiting a grave. Helena gathered whatever strength remained. You did this to me. Mum, you're sick. We're taking care of you," Rodrigo said, voice calm, rehearsed. "I'm not sick. You drugged me, brought me here. You're stealing my money." Dr. Mendez scribbled on his clipboard. "Persecutory delusions, verbal aggression. I'll adjust the medication." "Delusions? I heard everything," Helena shouted. Marcella sighed theatrically. "See, doctor? She's getting worse. She thinks we want to harm her. It's so sad to see your own mother like this." Fake tears shone in Marcella's eyes. Rodrigo put his hand on his sister's shoulder, consoling her. Helena exploded with helpless fury. She lunged. 2 nurses held her down and dragged her back to the bed. You'll pay for this," she screamed. Marcella rose, adjusted her purse. "We'll come back next week, Mum. Rest, get better." They left, and Helena was left screaming, tied down again. That night, when the drugs fog lifted and she could think clearly, Helena made a decision. If nobody believed her, she needed proof, documents, records, something undeniable. Then she remembered the diary she'd started at home. She needed a new one, here inside that prison. Against all odds, she found a way. A young nurse with tired but kind eyes dropped a pen near her bed. Helena grabbed it and hid it under the mattress. Paper was harder to find, but she discovered medicine envelopes had blank backs. She saved each one, smoothing them into pages. Each night when they thought she slept, Helena wrote names, dates, times of visits, what her children said, the forged signatures. The diary grew, and with it a spark of hope. What Helena didn't know was that Marcella already suspected something, and soon she would come to take away the last of her mother's voice. Writing became the only thing keeping Helena alive. On long, sleepless nights, because the meds scrambled her sleep, making her doze by day and stay awake when everything was dark and silent, she wrote, the handwriting shaky at first, then steadier. Every word was an act of resistance. She documented everything. March 12th, Marcella came with a lawyer. talked about necessary transfers. They wouldn't let me see the papers. Dr. Mendez increased the risperidone. I haven't been able to think straight for 2 days. March 18th. A nurse mentioned they saw Rodrigo leaving the bank with cash bags. Your son's taking good care of your finances, she said. I didn't authorize anything. March 23rd. Marcella brought papers to sign, said it was just a temporary power of attorney. I refused. They held me down, forced my hand. My signature is on documents I didn't read, the pages piled up, hidden in different places. Some inside the pillowcase, others wedged between the mattress and the bed frame. One even inside the toilet tank wrapped in plastic. Helena knew the risk. If they found the diary, it would be the end. They'd crank up her meds, or worse, transfer her to the ward for difficult patients, where there were no windows, only isolation and silence. But she had to continue. Those pages were her sanity, proof that she still existed, still thought, still fought. Then she found an unlikely ally. Her name was Dalva, a nurse around 50, grey hair always in a bun, eyes tired but alert. Unlike the others, she really looked at patients. She talked. She listened. One day, while changing Helena's sheets, Dalva found a page that had slipped. Helena froze. That was the end. But Dalva read silently, then folded the paper and handed it back discreetly. You write well, she murmured, not looking directly at her. Helena didn't know what to say. Dalva kept making the bed, voice low. I've seen a lot here. People committed because they got too old and were a burden. People committed because a spouse wanted to get rid of them. People committed because they're worth more doped than lucid. She paused. But you don't belong here. Anyone paying attention can see that. Helena felt tears rising. It was the first time in weeks someone treated her like a human being. They're going to kill me in here, she whispered. Not with a gun, with pills, with forgetting, until I disappear. Dalva finished the bed, cast a quick glance at the doorway to make sure they were alone. Keep writing, but be careful. There are cameras in the halls, and your daughter, she's not stupid. I've seen the way she looks at you. It's not the look of someone who cares. It's the look of someone who's waiting. Waiting for what? For you to give up. The words hung in the air like a sentence. Dalva left without another word. But from that day on, she always forgot something useful nearby. A new pen, a sturdier sheet of paper. Once, even a small notebook left on the chair. Helena filled the pages with contained fury, yet with clarity. It wasn't a cathartic rant. It was legal evidence. She knew that if anyone ever read it, it had to be irrefutable. She recorded exact amounts, precise times, full names. April Sane, Rodrigo mentioned selling the Paulista Avenue store. Declared value, 1.2 million. Real market value, at least 3 million. They're skimming the difference. April 9th, Marcella brought the deed for the Jardins apartment, said it needed regularizing. I signed under duress, 2 nurses pinning my arms. She also wrote about the clinic, the abuses she saw, patients tied down for no reason, wrong meds given on purpose to keep people docile. April 15th, woman in Ward B screamed all night. In the morning, she was in an induced coma. Nurse said, family asked to keep her quiet. No one questioned it. Helena knew she wasn't only fighting for herself, she was documenting an entire system of silent horror. But the more she wrote, the greater the risk. And Marcella was getting suspicious. On one visit, the daughter prowled the room with a predator's eyes. She opened drawers, looked under the bed, flipped the chair over. What are you looking for? Helena asked, tense. Nothing, Mum, just making sure you're comfortable. But Helena saw it. The way Marcella pressed the mattress, testing for hidden items. The way she examined the bathroom. She knew. That night, Helena redistributed all the pages. She hid most of them in new spots. But the main notebook, the one Dalva had given her, was too big. It didn't fit inside the pillowcase or the tank. She decided to stash it inside the hollow bed frame, shoved into a tear in the upholstery. She slept fitfully, and when she woke the next morning, she knew something was wrong. Marcella was there, but not alone. She had brought Rodrigo and 2 clinic security guards. Mom, we know you've been writing things, Marcella said, her voice dangerously calm. Helena felt her blood run cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie, a nurse saw you. You've been hiding paper pen, making your little newspaper. Rodrigo folded his arms. Where is it? I don't have anything. Marcella nodded to the guards. Tear it apart. They destroyed the room, slit the mattress, opened the tank, turned the chair upside down, and they found it. The notebook hit the floor with a dull thud. Marcella snatched it up and flipped through it. Her face went white, then red with rage. You lunatic! You think anyone's going to believe this? Helena stood, summoning every ounce of dignity she had left. It's the truth, and you know it. Marcella lunged, her face inches from Helena's. No one will read this. No one will know. Rodrigo took the notebook from his sister. What do we do with it? Marcella smiled, a smile that froze Helena's blood. We burn it, and that's exactly what they did. They dragged Helena to the window, forced her to watch. In the clinic's inner courtyard, accessible only through the administrative wing, Marcella and Rodrigo made a small improvised bonfire in a metal drum. The day was grey and overcast, the kind of afternoon that seems to drain the colour from everything. Marcella held the notebook like trash. Rodrigo had already piled up the loose pages they'd found, the ones in the pillowcase, the tank, all of it together. No, Helena whispered, gripping the window bars. Please don't. Marcella looked up, straight at the window where her mother stood, and smiled, a smile of absolute victory. She struck the match. The small flame danced for a heartbeat before growing, licking at the paper's edges. The fire spread fast, ravenous. The pages writhed, curled, blackened. Helena felt as if she were burning with them. Every word she'd written with so much pain, so much hope, turning to ash, her voice, her memory, her fight, consumed. Tears ran down her face. She no longer had the strength to scream. She only watched, powerless, as the smoke spiraled lazily into the clouded sky. Marcella tossed the entire notebook into the fire. The pages flared open, shivered, as if trying to fly from the flames. Uselessly, the fire devoured everything. Rodrigo laughed. There, problem solved. Marcella brushed her hands on her pants, gave the flames one last look. Now no one will believe you anymore, Mom. You're just another crazy old woman shouting nonsense. Then it happened. A sudden, unexpected gust swept across the courtyard, so strong it made the flames whip sideways, and a single page, not yet fully consumed, tore free of the drum. It flew, twirled in the air, floated like an autumn leaf, and landed far away near a shrub, out of the fire's reach. Marcella didn't see. Rodrigo didn't see. They had their backs turned, already walking away, satisfied with the destruction. But someone saw. Across the courtyard, near the service door, Dalva had been watching it all. She'd sensed something was wrong when she saw the siblings come down with that air of cruel resolve, and she'd followed at a distance. Now she saw the fallen page, edges singed, but still legible. She waited, counted to 100. Marcella and Rodrigo went back inside, laughing, celebrating. When the courtyard was empty, Dalva moved quickly to the shrub, picked up the page, and tucked it inside her uniform. Her heart hammered. She knew the risk, but she also knew she couldn't live with herself if she did nothing. Back in the room, Helena had collapsed on the floor, sobs shaking her whole body. The guards left, abandoning her to her grief. She had lost everything. No more proof. No more voice. Exactly as Marcella had said. Just another mad woman. The door opened again. Helena didn't lift her head. It didn't matter who it was. Then a gentle hand touched her shoulder. Up you get, Dalva's voice said, firm, not harsh. Helena looked up, her eyes red and swollen. Dalva crouched beside her and very carefully took something from inside her smock. The page, half burned, edges black and brittle, but still readable. Helena took it with trembling hands. She couldn't believe it. She looked at the page, then at Dalva, then back at the page. It was the sheet where she'd recorded the bank transfers, exact dates, amounts, account numbers, the forged signature on a power of attorney, all there, untouched by the fire. I saw it fall, Dalva whispered. I grabbed it before they noticed. Helena couldn't speak. She only hugged the page to her chest, like it was the most precious thing in the world, because it was. Dalva helped her sit on the bed. This is dangerous. If they find out something survived, they'll search again. And next time they'll strip search everyone. What do I do? Dalva thought for a moment. You have to get out of here, out of this clinic. But that's not easy. You were committed by court order. You'll need a lawyer, someone on the outside, to challenge it. I have no one. My children isolated me from everyone. My friends think I've gone crazy. Then we need this page to land in the right hands. How? Dalva looked toward the door, making sure no one was listening. I have a friend. She's an investigative journalist. She's done stories on shady psych wards, forced commitments, abuse. A spark of hope flickered in Helena. Can you talk to her? I can try, but it'll take a few days and you have to hold on. Don't give up. Don't do anything that draws attention. Understand? Helena nodded, clutching the page. I'll hold on. Dalva hid the sheet in a new place. Inside a sealed envelope, tucked at the bottom of a locked cleaning supplies box in the storage room. Nobody would look there. That night, Marcella returned alone. She entered with a triumphant air. How are you feeling, Mum? She asked, sweetly false. Helena stared back. There was something different in her eyes now. Not just fear or despair, something deeper. Determination. Fine, she answered, voice controlled. Marcella seemed surprised. She had expected Helena shattered, broken. Great, because tomorrow you'll sign a few more papers. Just formalities. Dr. Mendes will be there. All right. Marcella narrowed her eyes. All right. No resistance. Helena shrugged. Why resist? You won, didn't you? You burned everything. Nothing's left. I'm just a crazy old woman no one listens to. It was exactly what Marcella wanted to hear. She smiled, satisfied. I'm glad you understand, Mom. It'll be easier for everyone this way. But as Marcella left, Helena whispered to herself, so softly that not even the walls could hear, you didn't burn everything. And in that moment, from the ashes of what looked like the end, something new began to grow. It wasn't just hope. It was vengeance. Dalva waited 3 days before acting. 3 days watching Marcella and Rodrigo's movements, memorizing their visiting hours, making sure no one grew suspicious. On Thursday, her day off, she took the sealed envelope from the supply room, slipped it into her bag, and left the clinic with her heart pounding. She knew she was risking her job, maybe more. There were confidentiality clauses, agreements that shielded the clinic from defamation. But Dalva had seen too much in that place, people being erased, lives being stolen, and Helena didn't deserve any of it. The journalist's name was Teresa Moreira. They'd studied together in their youth, lost touch for years, and run into each other by chance at a book fair. Teresa had become an investigator specializing in social exposés. She'd already blown the lid off fraud in nursing homes and exposed organ trafficking rings. If anyone could do something with that page, it was her. They met at a discreet cafe far from downtown. Teresa arrived on time. Short grey hair, sharp eyes, always searching for the story behind the story. You sounded nervous on the phone, she said, sitting down. Dalva didn't waste time. She pulled the envelope from her bag and set it on the table. I need you to see this. But first, promise me you won't expose me. You can't mention my name anywhere. Teresa frowned. Dalva, you know I always protect my sources. I know, but this time it's serious. If they find out it was me, I'll lose more than my job. I could face legal trouble. The clinic has powerful lawyers. Teresa nodded, taking the envelope. Understood, you can trust me. She opened it carefully, pulled out the scorched page and read. Her eyes widened. The page contained March 28th. Marcella forced signature on power of attorney. Document carried by Dr. Mendes. Bank transfer authorized without my consent. $850,000 from savings. Banco Nacional, branch 1847, Act 23456-7, to account in the name of Marcela Castro Valente, branch 1847, Act 98234-1. Rodrigo witness. I was drugged beforehand. I did not read the document. April 2nd, sale of Joalheria Valente, Avenida Paulista 2314. Declared value, 1,200 San Tag. Real market value, at least $3,000 Cairns. Difference not deposited into my account. Rodrigo mentioned a shell company to divert funds. Attorney of record, Dr. Marcelo Guimarães, OAB SP 84756. This is gold, Teresa said. It's a crime, Dalva corrected. It's both. Teresa photographed the page with her phone. Who is this woman? Helena Valente? A patient. Committed by her own family. They want her fortune, so they locked her up claiming dementia. But she's lucid, completely lucid. And this page? She wrote an entire diary documenting everything. Her children found it and burned it. But this one page escaped. Teresa ran a hand through her hair, thinking, I need to talk to her, in person. That's hard. The clinic controls visits. Only family can enter without a court order. Then we'll get a court order. How? Teresa thought for a moment, then grabbed her phone. I have a contact, a retired judge, still influential. He hates institutional abuse. He's helped me before. She called right there, explained briefly, and sent the photo. She listened for long minutes, then hung up. He'll get me a visitation order, as a journalist investigating an anonymous tip, but it'll take a couple of days. Dalva exhaled, not realizing she'd been holding her breath. Thank you, truly. Don't thank me yet. This is only the beginning. If what's on this page is true, we'll need much more to bring those kids down. It is true, I know, Helena. She isn't lying. I believe you. But a court needs more than a burnt page. It needs witnesses, bank records, forensic analysis. She had all of that in the diary, but it was burned. Then we'll have to rebuild it, Teresa said, standing, resolved. I'll start digging. The kids, the named attorney, the clinic, everything. Dalva stood too. Just, please be quick. I don't know how much longer Helena can hold on. They keep upping her meds. Every week she's more faded. I know how these places work, Teresa said, resting a hand on Dalva's shoulder. I'll move fast. 2 days later, Teresa arrived at Clinica Santa Beatriz with the court order in hand. The director tried to stonewall procedures, visiting hours, patient condition. Teresa simply showed the paper and said, either you take me to Helena Valente now, or I come back with a TV crew and film outside while I interview every patient's family I can find. The director relented. They led her to Helena's room. Teresa went in alone and closed the door behind her. What she saw shocked her. Helena looked 10 years older in a few weeks. Disheveled hair, pale, gaunt face, sunken, tired eyes. She sat on the bed staring at the wall, hands trembling slightly. Heavy meds at work. Helena, Teresa approached slowly, as if nearing a frightened animal. Helena turned her head. Her eyes took time to focus. Who are you? My name is Teresa. I'm a journalist. A friend sent me. She paused. Dalva. At the name, Helena seemed to wake. Her eyes gained a little light. Dalva. Teresa sat in the chair by the bed, pulled up the photo of the page and showed it. She gave me this, and told me about you. Helena looked. Tears came at once. My page. It survived. It did. And now it's going to help get you out of here. But I need your help. Tell me everything, every detail, names, dates, places, anything you remember. Helena wiped her tears and gathered herself. For the first time in weeks, she felt a chance. Fragile, small, but real. I'll tell you everything. And she did. For 2 hours, she recounted every betrayal, manipulation, and forced document. Teresa recorded, took notes, asked follow-ups. When they were done, Teresa had enough to begin. I'm going to investigate. I'll pull documents from the registry office, speak to the bank, track down this attorney. When I have it all, I'll publish. It's going to blow up. Helena gripped her hand. What if they kill me first? What if they increase the meds so much I can't think? I won't let that happen, Teresa said, squeezing back. From now on, you're not alone. For the first time since being committed, Helena believed that maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of that hell. But neither of them knew Marcella had already been tipped off about the journalist's visit, and she was planning her next move, a final one. Teresa moved fast, very fast. Over the next 5 days, she built a devastating dossier. She began with the attorney named on the page, Dr. Marcelo Guimarães. A quick search showed he'd twice been investigated for forging powers of attorney. Never convicted, always slipping through on technicalities. But the smoke was there. Through a contact at the registry office, she obtained off-the-record copies of documents signed by Helena. A handwriting expert confirmed the signatures were coerced. Irregular pen pressure, the telltale tremor of a guided or drugged hand. Then she went after the bank records. Harder, but not impossible. Through an anonymous source inside Banco Nacional, someone who also distrusted the transactions, she obtained statements showing suspicious transfers. Large sums leaving Helena's account and being broken up into smaller deposits across multiple fresh shell companies. Rodrigo appeared as a partner in 3 of those companies, Marcella in 2 others. It was a classic laundering and asset stripping scheme. Teresa also uncovered something disturbing about Clinica Santa Beatriz. It wasn't just a mental health facility. It was a lucrative business that received incentives from wealthy families to keep patients committed indefinitely. The longer a person stayed, the more the family paid, and the more control they had over the patient's assets. Dr. Mendez, the physician who signed Helena's evaluation, had a pattern. Dozens of similar reports, always involving patients with considerable wealth. Teresa put everything into a 15-page exposé. She didn't pitch it to a traditional paper. She knew the family's lawyers would try to block it. Instead, she published on her investigative blog, which had thousands of followers and years of hard-earned credibility. The headline was blunt and devastating. "The Children Who Commit to Inherit: How Families Use Psychiatric Clinics to Steal Fortunes." She hit publish at 6 a.m. on a Monday. By 9 a.m. it had 20,000 shares. By noon, 50,000. By afternoon, TV networks were calling. Interviews, details, footage. Teresa sat for 3 different broadcasts, showing documents, charts, the burned page. She laid out the scheme with surgical clarity. Helena Valente is not an isolated case. She is the face of a silent crime happening every day in this country. Lucid, elderly people locked up and drugged so relatives can loot their fortunes. Social media exploded. Hashtags surged. Justice for Helena. Freedom for Helena. Wrongfully committed. Public pressure swelled like a wave. Marcela and Rodrigo realized too late that they'd lost control of the narrative. At the family mansion, Marcela watched TV with shaking hands. Rodrigo paced, pale. How did she get this? How? That damn journalist! Someone fed her info. Marcela grabbed her phone and called the attorney. He answered in a panic. "Have you seen the news? The Bar Association is calling me. They want an inquiry. You have to fix this." "There is no fixing it. The documents are out. Everyone's seen them. You're trending." She hung up, furious, and dialed the clinic. "Increase my mother's medication, now." "But ma'am, she's already at the maximum permitted dose." "I didn't ask what's permitted. I told you to do it." A pause on the other end. "If anything happens to her, nothing will happen. She'll just sleep more. I'll pay whatever it takes." She turned to Rodrigo. "We need to disappear." "Disappear? Where?" "Anywhere. While this is just media, we can manage. But if it goes criminal, too late." The doorbell rang. Rodrigo peeked through the window. 3 police cars. And cameras. Lots of cameras. Shit! Marcela ran to the bedroom, scrambling. Cash, passports. Maybe they could slip out the back. But when she opened the door, 2 officers were already there. "Marcela Castro Valente?" She froze. "You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, unlawful imprisonment and asset diversion." The cuffs clicked around her wrists. Rodrigo tried to run, but was intercepted on the staircase. Cuffed and taken, too. Cameras rolled, capturing both of them being led to the cruisers, trying to hide their faces as reporters shouted, "Did you really commit your mother to steal her inheritance? How many others were victims of this scheme? Do you have anything to say to Helena Valente?" Silence, except for sirens and shutters. At the clinic, Helena watched on the cafeteria TV. Other patients crowded around. Some didn't fully understand, but others, those still lucid, looked at Helena with something like hope. Dalva stood beside her, holding her hand. "You did it," she whispered. Helena said nothing. She watched her children taken away, heads bowed, hands cuffed. She felt no joy, no anger, only a vast emptiness. Those were the children she had born, loved, raised, and they had tried to destroy her. There was no name for the pain, but freedom was close, and that, at least, was real. Teresa arrived an hour later with a civil rights attorney. They brought a signed writ of habeas corpus. Helena's commitment was officially annulled. She was free. When they entered the room, Helena was still in hospital clothes, meds fogging her system, but her eyes were clear. "You can leave," Teresa said, smiling. "Now." Helena looked at the open door, then at her hands, then back at the door. Slowly, she stood. Her steps were unsteady at first, then firmer with each meter. When she crossed the threshold, for the first time in months, Helena Valente was free. But the fight was not over yet. It took 2 weeks for Helena to recover physically. The doctors who examined her after her release were stunned by the medication levels in her blood. "One more month like this, and you would have had irreversible neurological damage," one of them said. But Helena was strong. She always had been. She stayed at Teresa's home while she recovered, slowly taking back control of her life. She changed every banking password, hired new attorneys, began proceedings to recover the assets that had been siphoned away, and she waited. She waited for the day of the confrontation. The trial was set for a Tuesday in August. The courthouse was packed. Journalists, onlookers, human rights advocates. The case had become a symbol. It wasn't just about Helena anymore. It was about everyone silenced, locked away, forgotten. Helena entered the courtroom in a navy suit, hair pulled back, posture straight. She wore no makeup. She didn't need it. Her strength was in her eyes. She sat beside her lawyers. Across the room, Marcela and Rodrigo with their counsel as well. They avoided looking at her. The judge entered. All rose. Proceedings began. The prosecution presented the evidence: falsified documents, bank statements, fraudulent medical reports. Witnesses took the stand. Dalva testified to everything she had seen at the clinic. The handwriting expert confirmed the forgeries. A bank employee, shielded by confidentiality, described the suspicious transfers. Each piece was another nail in the defense's coffin. Then it was Helena's turn. She took the stand, sat, adjusted the microphone. The room fell into absolute silence. The prosecutor began with technical questions: dates, amounts, documents. Helena answered with startling precision. Her memory was intact, crystalline. Then came the hard questions. Mrs. Valente, can you describe to the court how you felt when you were committed? Helena drew a deep breath. As if I had died, but my body was still breathing. Silence. The worst part wasn't the physical imprisonment. It was the psychological one. Knowing that my own children, the people I loved most in the world, were doing this to me consciously. Not out of madness, not out of desperation, for money. Her voice didn't waver. She wasn't there for pity. She was there to lay out the truth. They didn't destroy me by accident. It was planned, calculated. Every lie, every fake document, every forced dose. Each one was a choice. And the worst part is, it almost worked. Almost, the prosecutor asked. Helena finally looked at Marcela and Rodrigo. They shrank in their seats. Almost. But it didn't. Because they underestimated one thing. What was that? My will to survive. Murmurs rippled through the room. The judge called for order. The defense tried to pivot. Marcela's lawyer argued there had been genuine concern for their mother's mental health, that decisions were made in good faith. But when Marcela took the stand, it all unraveled. She tried to keep her composure, but the prosecutor's questions cornered her. Did you truly believe your mother had dementia? Yes, she was confused. Then why didn't you seek a second opinion? Why no full neurological workup? Marcela hesitated. Dr. Mendez said that... Doctor Mendez, who received 50,000 reais to sign a false report. Silence. You knew the jewelry stores were worth 3 million, yet you sold for 1.2. Where did the difference go? We needed to pay the clinic's bills. Bills created by committing your own mother? Marcela didn't answer. She only stared down. Rodrigo fared worse. He contradicted himself 3 times, lied about amounts, tried to pin everything on Marcela, and begged for understanding. There was none. When the sentences were read, the courtroom was sepulchral. Marcela, 8 years in prison for fraud, forgery, and unlawful imprisonment. Rodrigo, 7 years for the same crimes. Dr. Mendez, medical license revoked and 5 years in prison. Dr. Guimarães, the attorney, disbarred and 6 years in prison. Clínica Santa Beatriz, closed pending full investigation. Helena listened in silence. When the gavel fell, she rose and walked to the exit, passing Marcela and Rodrigo as officers led them away. Marcela tried to speak. Mom, please. Helena stopped, turned. They looked at each other, mother and daughter, victim and perpetrator. You called me crazy, Helena said, low and steady. But the real madness was thinking you could erase me. I am stronger than you ever imagined. And now you'll have the rest of your life to understand that. She turned and left. She didn't look back. 6 months later, Helena stood in front of a new building, modern with wide windows and a garden at the entrance. A discreet plaque by the door read, The Silenced Voices Foundation, Support for Victims of Abusive Commitment. She had used part of her recovered fortune to create it, a place for shelter, free legal aid, and psychological support for people who had endured the same hell she had. Teresa was beside her, as was Dalva, who had left the clinic and now worked as the foundation's coordinator. Are you sure about this? Teresa asked. It's a lot of money. You could retire, travel, enjoy life. Helena smiled. Enjoy what? Knowing there are still people locked up, drugged, silenced? No, this is what needs to be done. Dalva placed a hand on her shoulder. You're going to help a lot of people. I hope so. The foundation quickly became a reference point. Within a year, it had already freed 17 people from illegal psychiatric commitments. By the second year, that number rose to 43. Helena became a symbol. She gave lectures, joined debates, and pushed for reforms in mental health commitment laws. But she never once visited Marcela or Rodrigo in prison. Some criticized her. They're your children, they said. You should forgive. But Helena understood the difference between forgiveness and complicity. "I did forgive," she would say. "I forgave so that anger wouldn't consume me. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it certainly doesn't mean letting them back into my life." One day she received a letter from Marcella. She hesitated before opening it. Part of her wanted to tear it up unread, but another part, the part that was still a mother, needed to know. She opened it. It was short. "Mother, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but you need to know. I regret it. Not being caught, but what I did. Here in prison I have too much time to think. Every night I see your face in that white room, begging someone to believe you, and I pretended not to see. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But you should know that the woman who did that to you, I don't recognize her anymore. Or maybe for the first time, I finally do. A monster. Rodrigo doesn't write. I think he still believes we were victims of injustice, but I know the truth. We destroyed the only person who ever truly loved us. Don't answer this letter. I don't want to force you to think about me. I just needed you to know. Marcella." Helena read it twice, then folded it and put it in a drawer. She didn't reply, but she didn't throw it away either. Some wounds don't fully heal, they just stop bleeding. The jewelry stores were reopened under new management. Helena didn't run them directly. She hired capable professionals, but she visited often, talked with employees, and kept the legacy alive. Most of the stolen money was recovered. The properties illegally sold were repurchased. Her fortune was restored. But Helena had learned something vital. Wealth without dignity is worthless. She began writing again, not a secret diary, but a book, about everything she had lived through, not for revenge, but to warn. The book was titled The Ashes of Truth. It was launched in a packed bookstore. Hundreds came. Some were victims of similar situations. Others were curious. And some were family members racked with guilt for having wrongfully committed their loved ones. At the event, a woman in her 40s approached, eyes full of tears. "I committed my mother 3 years ago," she said, voice trembling. "I thought I was doing the right thing. She was difficult, stubborn, wouldn't listen to anyone. But now, after reading your story, I'm not so sure." Helena took her hand. "Is she still institutionalized?" The woman nodded, ashamed. "Then you still have a chance to do better. Go see her, really see her, look into her eyes, listen, and if you realize you were wrong, fix it, before it's too late." The woman left in tears, but 2 weeks later she emailed Helena. She had taken her mother out of the clinic. They were rebuilding their relationship, slowly, but together. Helena smiled when she read it. Every story like that was a victory. A year after the book's release, Helena was invited to testify before the Senate. Lawmakers were debating a new Mental Health Commitment Act, stricter, with real patient protections. She agreed. She sat before the senators, the cameras, and a country watching, and she spoke. She spoke for herself, but also for all those who no longer had a voice, for those who had died in clinics, forgotten, for those still inside, drugged and erased. "This law isn't about me," she said. "It's about the thousands of people who'll never get to tell their stories, because they were silenced forever. This law is about stopping families from using the mental health system as a weapon. It's about remembering that psychiatric patients are human beings, not burdens, not inconveniences, people." The law passed 6 months later. It was named the Helena Valente Law. Helena hadn't wanted it to bear her name, but the legislators insisted. "Your name will remind people what happens when society ignores the vulnerable." She accepted. If her suffering could protect others, it was worth it. At 67, Helena was at peace. Not perfect peace. Some nights she still woke sweating, dreaming of that white room, the restraints, the fire consuming her words. But it was peace nonetheless. Hard-won, earned peace. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, and more than that, a symbol. Dalva remained by her side, not just as an employee but as a true friend. Teresa had become her confidant. Together, they formed a network of strong women who lifted each other up, and Helena finally understood. Family isn't just blood. Family is who stays when the world falls apart. One day another letter arrived, this time from Rodrigo. Unlike Marcella's, it showed no remorse, only rage. He blamed her for his prison sentence, his public humiliation, the destruction of the family. Helena read it, and without hesitation tore it to pieces. Some regrets never come, and that's okay. She didn't need their forgiveness to move forward. The final chapter of Helena's book ended with a reflection. They called me crazy because they couldn't control me. They tried to erase me because my voice made them uncomfortable, and they almost succeeded. But the fire that burned my diary didn't destroy my truth. It purified it. Today, when I look back, I see the hell I went through, but I also see how much I grew within it. Pain taught me things happiness never could. Betrayal showed me who I truly am when everything is taken away. And I discovered that I am unbreakable, not because I don't feel pain, but because every day I choose not to let it define me. If you're reading this and see yourself in my story, trapped, silenced, called insane, know this: you are not alone. Your voice matters. Even if they try to burn it, it will find a way to survive. Because the truth, no matter how deep they bury it, always finds the light. Always. It was a sunny Sunday. Helena sat in the garden of her home, not the old mansion. She had sold that long ago. Too many bad memories. She had bought a smaller house, warm and cozy, with a view of the sea. On the little table beside her, a cup of coffee. In her lap, a new notebook. But this time, she wasn't writing about pain. She was writing about beginnings. She had started a new project, a fiction novel. A story about a woman who loses everything and rebuilds her life from scratch. It wasn't autobiographical, but there were pieces of her in every page. The phone rang. It was Teresa. Have you seen the news? No. Why? Clinica Santa Beatriz has been permanently shut down, and the director's been indicted. They found records of 17 more fraudulent commitments. Helena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. 17 more people. Thanks to you, they'll be freed. The investigation only happened because you opened the door. After hanging up, Helena gazed toward the horizon. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She thought about everything she had lost, her children, her innocence, her trust. But she also thought about everything she had gained: strength, clarity, purpose. And she realized that, strangely enough, she wouldn't change a thing, because that pain had transformed her into something greater than she had been before. Not better, there's no hierarchy in pain, but different, more aware, more whole. She reached for the old notebook she had kept since the clinic, the few surviving pages of her original diary, including the one Dalva had saved from the fire. She looked at them for a long moment. Then, slowly, she stood and walked to the fireplace. It wasn't winter anymore, but she lit a fire anyway. She held the pages in her hands, her past, her hell, her proof, and with a calm smile she tossed them into the flames. This time, it wasn't destruction, it was liberation. The fire danced, devouring the words, but Helena felt no pain, only peace, because now she no longer needed proof to validate her truth. She was the proof, alive, free, whole. She returned to her chair in the garden, picked up her new notebook, and kept writing, not about the past, about the future. Helena Valente had learned something few have the courage to face. Monsters don't always come from outside. Sometimes they sleep in the room next door. They eat at the same table. They share our blood. But she also learned that evil never gets the final word. Because truth, no matter how many times they try to burn it, always leaves ashes. And from the ashes, something new can always rise. She didn't seek revenge out of hatred. She freed herself out of self-respect. She didn't destroy her children. She simply let them face the consequences of their choices. And most importantly, she didn't let betrayal define her. Because her greatest victory wasn't seeing Marcela and Rodrigo behind bars. It was waking up each day and choosing to live, to rebuild, to refuse, despite everything, to become the monster they tried to make of her. Helena Valente wasn't saved by anyone. She saved herself. And in doing so, she saved countless others. Because some stories don't end with happily ever after. They end with "and she survived." And sometimes that's more than enough.